Henry Bolton's here, international border control expert, because, of course, it's all very well on the military front saying that you're going to strengthen our armed forces abroad, but who's minding the store back home? Because I'm afraid we've got quite a few enemies arriving on our shores without any kind of resistance whatsoever. Henry, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
So,
good Lord, yeah.
I mean, that's the point, isn't it? I mean, it's all very well. I'm liking the fact that Keir Starmer's basically jumping to Donald Trump's tune, and he's decided to up defence spending, and I'm happy that he's doing it. But you know, it's kind of ironic that he's selling us this package of goods based on making us safe at home when we're not safe at home.
Yeah, we're not talking about defence and military expenditure, but I think his speech yesterday was weak, pathetic, certainly not enough, wrong timeline, and actually mendacious, because he was actually talking about figures that he was manipulating figures, massaging the figures. The actual sort of fiscal benefit to the defence budget isn't anything near what he's trying to make out. Yeah. But that's a different topic. I mean, back here, you know, Mike, I have argued for a very long time that our entire system, including the laws, the structures, the organisations, need to be reformed if we're going to secure our borders. And it's not just about people coming across the borders. It's about all the narcotics, the cocaine, the heroin, the firearms, and so on. And it's a massive problem. And even fisheries. Illegal fishing is a border issue. So I've long argued for root and branch reform of all of that, because it is messy, it is chaotic, and it is one of the most, if not the most chaotic setup that I have experienced working with 57 different countries in all. Yeah. So, which is appalling. It's quite an indictment on the British system.
Yeah. And it's getting worse, isn't it? I mean, I don't get the sense from you that there's any improvement that you've seen.
No, I haven't seen any improvement. What I've seen is tinkering around the edges. And, you know, whether it's the accommodation of asylum seekers, whether it's sort of saying we're going to allocate a few more people to processing asylum claims, whatever it is, that there are all these tinkering around the edges type of activities going on. There's no boldness, there's no courage, there's no vision, and there's no determination to see the problem through. You know, somebody said to me the other day, I was talking about something, and they said, well, what you're talking about, Henry, is strategic thinking. But what no politician in Westminster has is strategic acumen. And I couldn't, you know, absolutely. They're tacticians. They're fiddling at things. They've not got that vision. And so when we look at the whole process of how we stop people getting to the European continent and why they get there in the first place, how they're dealt with within Europe, how they're stopped coming across the border, what we do with them when they arrive at our shores or on a border vessel, then if you know, that's all legislative back here at home, that bit as well as structural and organisational. And then we look at what happens if we've got foreign national offenders here in the United Kingdom when we want to deport them. We've got a judicial system that is skewed entirely on the premise that people should be allowed to stay here if there is any suggestion that they've got any links or ties to the United Kingdom, which of course now what these people do is they establish those links and ties because they know it's a defence should they be caught. And so the whole system, Mike, the whole system is broken, and anyone who tries to fix it by looking at any one of these issues is going to fail, because it is a process from start to finish that is broken. So you've got to redesign the whole thing. Every single element has an impact or an effect on the other. And so, you know, we've got a big piece of work to do. As I've always said, it can be done in 8 months, but nobody has the vision, the determination, or the will to do it.
Is there a problem within Border Force, as there is within what we've been described as the armed forces at the moment, which is it's all gone a bit woke, and so they're more interested in the sort of DEI stuff, and they're more interested in the you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, and making sure that, you know, they've got enough quotas of the right kinds of people, rather than actually doing the actual job that they're paid to do?
Sure, there's an element of that, and of course remember that because of the bizarre way that we've set bizarre border force up, and that's not the fault of the good men and women who are part of border force. They are actually civil servants. You know, not in the same way as the armed forces or the police. They're civil servants, and we right at the very beginning, when they set the border agency up and then they folded it into the border force, again tinkering around the edges, nothing particularly meaningful. The contracts were, you know, there are people on different contracts but working together on the same shift patterns, and it's a nightmare. The whole thing is a mess, and that's not their fault. It's the fault of the people who designed this and put it together, the civil servants and so on, in the Home Office. Now what we have to do is, because go back to your point, morale is a big problem in border force, because there are people like me out here who are saying, you know, this isn't good enough, this isn't good enough. But what I don't want to blame is the frontline people who are out on those vessels doing what they're told, often in pretty rough conditions, working shift work, being called out at all hours, and it's tough work, and they're doing their best. It is not their fault that this is broken. It is the fault of the people back in the Home Office and in the government who fail firstly to acknowledge that it is broken, and secondly have absolutely no clue as to how to fix it, because they haven't got that sort of breadth of strategic thinking. Right. No, so we are not going to solve this, Mike. I know this sounds depressing. We are not going to solve this until the government starts to get within it people who can actually plan at that level and have an idea as to what it is that you need to do to deliver effect. Because that's the other thing, you know, a lot of politicians and civil servants talk about, we're going to do this and this and this to address X, Y, and Z, but they've got no idea. And it's always this problem with project or program management, even on a smaller scale, converting your intention, what you want to do, into actual effect on the ground. And it's always been a problem. I mean, throughout my life with the United Nations and the European Union, whoever, NATO, even the military have that problem of delivering effect, because it is the most difficult part of the whole picture. And nobody in Westminster or Whitehall seems to have a clue as to how to go about it. And it's very, very frustrating. But I don't want to blame the people who are the front line. You know, it's like the police. It's not the fault of the individual police officers that the police are unable to deal with a lot of the criminality, or are diverted onto other issues that we don't see as problems, the members of the public. It's not their fault. The fault lies with the hierarchy, the senior officers and the politicians and bureaucrats who drive this whole thing, who are then playing the political game and are influenced by the wish to sort of smooth their way in with certain pressure groups.
Well, that's it. I mean, if you want to stop something from happening, you stop it from happening. That's the first thing you do. You don't talk about how you're going to stop it. You don't, you know, hire some people to tell you how to stop it. You just stop it. But listen,
well, there's no
good
leadership.
to talk to you. Well, exactly. Henry, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Henry Bolton, their international border control expert.